Testing the microphone.
Well, wait, let me make sure it's on, or no, that's the battery charge. Okay. Nothing.
Good morning, Sangha. We're so excited again to see you, each and every one of you online, and our teachers and our visitors inside the Zendo. Welcome again. This morning we have a Dharma talk by Kosetsu Randy Earl, finishing up his ango, his last ango series talk. So we'll hopefully look forward to his debrief after his ango, and he'll be joining us as well as he can, when he's no longer actually physically here. So we look forward to seeing what he's going to speak about this morning. And I'm going to hand the virtual microphone over to Kosetsu Randy Earl, and he's going to let us know what he's going to talk about this morning.
Thank you so much, So yes, just to be clear, when she said the last in the series, so it's the last in the series of talks. It was my first ango, so there's a couple more to go, and we'll just have to see in terms of scheduling, jobs and family and such when those will be. So I did have kind of a series of talks that worked together in mind. I don't know if it's been that way in realization, but in intent, that's the way it worked. So my first talk was the wayfinding talk, and I talked about my proclivity, fondness, addiction to asking questions. And the second talk was what you do with what you get from those questions. And I talked about mental models and the teachings as mental models. And the third talk, which very few people saw because the power failed here at the Zen Center, so it was not seen online. I will try to go back and record that. Was on one specific mental model that I had found very helpful, and I'll refer to that a little bit in this one. And those three were all very much focused on being in your head, in the mind, and thinking. And we all know that what we're trying to do is get out of our heads, beyond thinking, into direct experience. So what I thought I would talk a little bit about today is an example of direct experience, which is even more challenging than any other of the previous talks, because we can talk about a method, right? We can share the same method. We can talk about a mental model, and we can share the same mental model. But when it comes to direct experience, everyone will have a different direct experience. Even in the same setting at the same time, my direct experience will be different from yours.
So, Cosette, before you get started, can you just do the opening Dharma verse? I always forget to do that.
Okay.
So if somebody grab the bell for me. I just always have to remind myself to do that. So thank you.
That part wasn't Dharma anyway.
That wasn't? Okay.
No.
Okay.
The next part
that was all preamble.
The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. How we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
So, the direct experience I wanted to talk about today was one that I had here on Ango, that I often have on a retreat, and that is just a profound sense of gratitude. It's common for me on retreats to have that feeling. What was surprising for me today was it kind of started immediately on the first day, And I think maybe some of that was probably just relief, and that, okay, all the planning's done, all the packing was done, all the driving was done, and I was like, I'm here. I can take a deep breath and sit and begin my ango. But I quickly also moved into a much deeper sense of gratitude, which is what I want to touch on a little bit here today. And what I find surprising is that in the sutras, in our liturgy, I find few mentions of gratitude, and specifically not as much in the sense that I'm talking about. And I find that kind of curious. But I think maybe that is because it is hard to talk about direct experience. So, what do I mean when I say gratitude? So, as with any word, there are layers and nuances of meaning, right? So one is a direct appreciation of benefits received. Somebody gives you something, you're grateful for it. Another sense, when I look in the dictionary, that's quite interesting, is it just says pleasure or contentment, not of anything, but that definition is pleasure or contentment, and that comes very close to what I feel many times. And then another definition is pleasing by reason of comfort supplied or discomfort alleviated, which is very easily relatable to dukkha and the cessation of dukkha, right? I think probably the middle definition is the one that I find most resonates with my experience in terms of pleasure or contentment, not of anything in particular. And I think I can use the mental model that I was talking about in the third talk to help myself understand that and perhaps explain it a little bit. So that model I was talking about, we talk a lot about emptiness and what does emptiness mean, and to really compress that talk, that model was whenever I think of how to define myself, it's always in relation to someone or something else, right? That I can't find anything where I exist alone in isolation, that it's always in relation to something else. And if you imagine like drawing lines to all those people and things that I'm interrelating with, interbeing with, that there's just a massive network of lines, and I'm the node. And you could even remove that little dot there, and still, if there's a hole in the center, still all those lines coming together kind of define me as being that node, that intersection of relationships. But in terms of what I wanted to talk about today, that interbeing, I think that is what leads to my immense sense of gratitude that I am a part of all of those relationships. And when I look at any one in particular, I can find something of joy there, and just to be so grateful to be a part of that relationship. And I want to give a few examples very quickly. I had mentioned, preparations for ango. I'm still working. I'm not retired, so I had a lot of work to do to try and get everything tied up so I could go. So I had a lot of very, not frantic, but very intense activity at work to prepare to go. Yet I'm so grateful that I have an employer that is willing to be flexible with me, to give me the opportunity to participate in ango. That's a wonderful blessing. So there's always that spectrum there. Yes, I had a lot of work to do to get ready to go, but then I have the opportunity to do it. That's something for me to be grateful for. Some of you may know I had a little mechanical trouble, so I ended up here early because I couldn't go on to my destination on the other side and come back. So I missed Labor Day with my family. But then the reason that that was poignant for me was because I have such a large, loving, connected family that we love to spend time together, and that is a wonderful thing that I'm extremely grateful for. Right? At work, while I was here, I was trying very hard to not be involved in work, and my employer was being very good about not reaching out to me about respecting my ango period. But then one of my fellow department heads took another position, so there was kind of an immediate need to be able to do some work in terms of facilitating a transition, a turnover, so that we could continue to proceed smoothly. And again, that could look like an interruption, a problem. Yet I'm so grateful that I have my colleagues who are not only colleagues, but dear friends, and I'm so happy for this person that they have this opportunity, and I can look forward to seeing, how they continue to grow and evolve in that opportunity. So, even though each one of those could have been seen as a problem, they were something that I was grateful for. And when I look at how that flips in my mind, I see that it depends on whether I'm looking at it from a relative perspective, from the self-centered perspective, versus the absolute perspective, the larger view, not self-centered perspective. And it's a problem when I look at it from the self-centered perspective, but it's something to be happy about and grateful for when I look at it in the larger, non-self-centered perspective. And when we, to me, that's just one of the dichotomies that we talk about so often in Zen. It's when we say dichotomy, we tend to think of it as opposed things, but I really see it as the end of the same line or bar or spectrum of part of the same thing, just looking at it from different directions, right? So to me, using that little mental model in my head of the lines and the relationships, that helped me see it. Am I looking at the dot in the middle, me, and it's a problem for me? Or am I zoomed out? Am I looking at the whole big picture? And that makes it so much easier for me to be grateful for all of those things that I'm a part of. So I've mentioned my work and my colleagues, and they're a huge part of my life. And right now, recently, I've been looking at ways to facilitate and do a better job of career counseling and career growth and development for my team members. So I've been exploring different tools to do that with. We're all familiar with tests that have been around forever, like the Myers-Briggs and some others, and they're continually evolving. And I'm using some more recent ones. I'm looking at the 16 personalities model, if you're familiar with that, or the Clifton Strengths profile and things like that. And of course, I'm not going to ask one of my team members, go do this until I've done it first, right? So I've been running these profiles on myself. And I'm not going to bore you with all the breakdown of me and who I am. But one of the things that really struck me in the personality profile for me is that, it said that this personality, I'm trying to find the quote here. Oh, well. It says this personality tends to see exquisite beauty in the humdrum activities of everyday life. And I thought about that a bit, and I thought, well, gee, does that mean I'm just lucky to be me, to have this kind of personality? Or is this the result of something that I've cultivated intentionally through my practice? And this kind of came to me as I was walking. So I walk or run every day. I just have to. And as I was walking, I was thinking about the career counseling for my colleagues and aligning their roles with their skill sets and things like that. And what came to mind for me is a line that says, well, I do what I do because of who I am. Right? That would be a good alignment, with career and personality. But it wasn't but a few seconds after that came to mind where it flipped and said, but I am who I am because of what I do, right? That our activities inform who we are. And I have seen, talking about these personality tests, I've seen mine change over the years. Like I shifted from an INTJ to an INFJ. So the T and the F is thinking to feeling. So I've, and I attribute that to my practice. I was very much in my head and thinking, which should be no surprise to anybody who's heard my talk. But I've yeah, 1 out of 3 is dealing with the feeling. The other 3 were thinking, right? But I have moved more towards that, gut feeling, one way we say it. And also I've seen my percentages change. These skills assessments also say, well, you are really strongly on this end of the spectrum, or not so much. And I've seen my percentages shift more towards kind of the middle spectrum, right? Kind of more balanced. And I think I attribute that to our practice a lot. And I think there is a lot to be said for cultivating what we want to be. So I've talked so far about kind of experiencing gratitude. I want to talk for a minute about cultivating gratitude. So I think we can easily cultivate gratitude. One of the things that I started doing during the pandemic was journaling. And when I say that to somebody, very often I get the question, "Oh, what kind of journaling do you do?" Because there are multiple kinds, right? There's the bullet journaling, the very it's a big thing now, very formatted and precise. And there's what I do, which is pretty much kind of free form, just sit down and write, and see what comes out. One of the forms is keeping a gratitude journal. And I think that's a lovely practice where you specifically sit down and write down things that you are grateful for in your day, in your life. And even though I don't keep a specific gratitude journal, it is something that I intentionally try to do. Is even though I say my approach is rather freeform, I do try to take a moment to make note of things that I am grateful for in my journaling practice. And I find that very helpful. One of the teachers that comes to mind in terms of this kind of gratefulness practice a lot is Thich Nhat Hanh. If you listen to that, I see a head nodding here. He talks about, oh, well, I've got a toothache, but how wonderful that I still have my teeth, and I can still eat. And we laugh, we chuckle, but that's not necessarily a given. I could grumble about my knees aching, but how wonderful that I can still go out for walks and runs. This was a kitchen conversation in the Zen Center here a couple days ago about how it seems our bodies work so much better when we use them. My knees don't hurt when I walk or when I run. So that's something to be grateful for. And for me, that's kind of a gratitude practice, right? To be aware of that and to do those kinds of things intentionally. So I look at gratitude as one of the Dharma gates, right? We talk about Dharma gates, and we talk about them very often, or most often probably, in a kind of an abstract sense. We don't really delineate what they are. I find it interesting to think of this as a Dharma gate, right? And I think it's easy to kind of fall into a thought of a Dharma gate as being something we have to go through, we have to maybe suffer through, we have to experience that is thrust upon us. But when we look at what we chant, we say, Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. And enter is an action. It is an intentionality. It is something that we choose to do. And I think we can choose different gates at different times as intentional practice. So I look at gratitude as a Dharma gate to practice in whatever way makes sense for you, whether it's journaling, whether it's addressing something particularly directly, or the remembrances, again in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. We have the remembrances. So I very much see gratitude as an intentional practice. So I've talked about feeling gratitude. I've talked about generating gratitude or practicing gratitude. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about expressing gratitude. So Master Dogen, in his essay, Gyoji, which one of our practitioners is named, means continuous practice. He talks about gratitude for encountering the Dharma and being able to practice it. And we hear that kind of phrase very often, resonating it, even in the Dharma opening, the Dharma opening verse, right? Rarely met with, yet here we have the opportunity to see and hear it. And he says, continuous practice, day after day, is the most appropriate way of expressing gratitude. This means that you practice continuously without wasting a single day of your life. So I see a very close correlation between my practice and gratitude, and it kind of it's self-reinforcing and feeding. You know, that's why I practice. It's because I feel gratitude, and I feel gratitude because I get to practice, and so I feel grateful for this opportunity to be here in Ango, and I feel grateful for our opportunity to practice as a Sangha, and I feel grateful for each and every one of you and the support you've shown me at this time, and I wish the same for you. What I have to say.
I do have one comment. In the beginning, Kosetsu started talking about personalities and how we relate to each other, and at home, at work, at play, and so forth. We have this interesting term, and I think you talked about the Bodhisattva vow, you know, to help all others. And of course, we understand that what little help we can give others is very small, but nonetheless, we try. But we also have this term called a negative Bodhisattva. I do Dokusan with maybe dialogue with maybe 30 people a week, and often it revolves around livelihood and problems with their boss and stuff like this. So in your way of expressing gratitude that you mentioned with a negative bodhisattva is somebody who is teaching you the Dharma all right, but in a way you don't appreciate, right? It's still the Dharma, and they don't even know it's the Dharma,
Right.
But they're giving you a hard time. So we recommend looking at people like that in your life as a negative bodhisattva. And the way we show gratitude is we don't necessarily do it externally, but internally we bow in their direction. Thank you very much, for teaching me this lesson.
Right.
So maybe you could, I'm sure you've encountered a few negative bodhisattvas in your life.
I've encountered a few negative bodhisattvas. The one that comes to mind very quickly is I took a career pause for a while and then went back to work, and I had been able to focus on my practice more and then spend more time in retreat and things during that career pause. And I went back to work, and I was trying to shift back into work mode and the expectations there, and I was given a vendor management role, and it's like, well, I need to be a hard-ass negotiator, that's what's expected of me. And I did that a little bit too effectively. And I looked back and I said, oh, this was not appropriate. And that doesn't sound like your point. The reason I did that is because the person I was dealing with was one of those negative bodhisattvas. Right. Okay, that's where this was relevant. Yeah. And it kind of sucked me into that kind of behavior, not blaming them. I kind of went willingly. But fortunately, I was able to be aware enough to see what was happening and step back and say, okay, this was a teaching moment, and thank you. And I didn't say thank you to them in that way. The way I thanked them was by adjusting my approach to be more kind, more appropriate.
It goes to the point of the precept of not discussing the faults of others, not praising yourself, and so forth at the expense of others. And Hui Nong's point that he did not see other people's faults. He saw his own clearly. He saw their behavior, but he didn't see it as their fault.
Right. I have gone through this. My teenage son is very compassionate. So he is stirred by the sorrows he sees in the world. But also being a teenager, he wants to go out and fix it. He wants to assign blame, and he wants to tell these people they're wrong. You know? And I was able to use a family member as an example because, you know, he disagreed with their views, yet he loved them. So that meant he would engage in the conversation. Well, let's look at this person's motivations, and actually it's out of love for you and wanting to care for you that they did this. Now, the way they did it, you don't appreciate, but their motivations were out of concern for you, and their actions were perhaps out of ignorance, you know, or greed, anger, delusion, you know, those kinds of things. So to go through that kind of process of looking at they're human, they suffer the same things we do, can we be a bit more understanding of that? That's relevant.
So Fusatsu, can you take over facilitating questions?
Yeah. And as always, Sangha, inside the Zendo and also online, please, if you have a question or comment, please come on, cut your camera on or go off of mute. John, I saw you come off, turn your camera on. Did you have a comment or a question? Always know if you have a comment, that smile and just turn your camera on. I pick on you. Are you okay to have a comment?
Thank you. I generally try to hold back. And at the same time, I'm one of those that become a little uncomfortable waiting in silent space. So thank you for the invitation. Sensei, thank you for the name you've given me to the lady recently. I now know she's a negative bodhisattva sent to me to help me awaken along the way. And that does provide a little bit of a twist that I appreciate. So thank you for that. Here's the question, Randy, that comes up for me. You mentioned this process of getting out of your head and into direct experience. My experience, I admit, is kind of murky and with very vague boundaries related to head and direct experience. And Sensei, I'd welcome you second, maybe commenting on this. But this label I use for head seems to be somehow in the middle of a flux of perceptions. What you might call the outside perceptions, you might call those the outside perceptions, but they seem to be mixed up inside this place called head, where they're being processed, manufactured, possibly projections are being generated, and also mixed into that soup is feelings and thoughts. And today I'm not wanting to move away from thoughts and feelings, but somehow include all of that in an, shall I say, in a holistic, receptive manner. How does that land with you?
So I hope I can address the question you're asking. I'm not entirely sure. It's if you're asking how can you flip the switch between, okay, I'm going to get out of my head and I'm going to be in direct experience mode. I haven't found that switch. What I have found is I have to just kind of like exhaust myself, you know, the recognition again and again and again and again, you know, this thought, this pattern is coming up, this emotion, this feeling, and then let it go. And eventually, I don't know what the right phrase is, but
You
it's like,
wear the monkey down.
yeah, you wear the monkey down. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's not like reinforcing it so the monkey turns into a gorilla. It's ignoring it such that the monkey goes away. And that's when I find that I, have the moments of experience, is when I have let the monkey exhaust itself and it collapses. Does that make sense? So yeah, I can't do it intentionally.
Let me take your metaphor and just say how that's landing over here. In my moment-to-moment experience, I'm wanting to allow enough space for the monkey to come in and to be part of the experience. I don't want the monkey diverting and captivating all of my attention, but I don't want to reject the monkey. I'm not interested in wearing the monkey down. I'm leaning into allowing the monkey to be the monkey, along with all of the other sensations, experiences that are arising. And hopefully, here we go, aspirationally, hopefully the monkey at some point might choose to curl up in the corner and go to sleep. But he's okay. He's just being a monkey.
I think John just gave us another version of ox herding pictures. It's the monkeys going to sleep picture. It's like, that's a beautiful kind of in the now version of what happens with the mind as we let it arise and release, right? And that's what you're talking about, Kosetsu Sensei.
And I guess key here is resistance. I just don't feel the need or compulsion to generate any resistance.
The beginning of wisdom.
That's what I mean by the recognizing it and letting it go rather than engaging with it. Resistance would be engaging.
Resistance is futile, says the monkey.
Yeah, and so did the board. Thank you for your comments, John. Very insightful.
Thank you for the invitation.
Let me ask, we have Sensei Shinjin back there. He's been kind of quiet, which is, not common. But did you have any comments, Sensei?
I really like how you talk about personality types and how it relates to one of the personality typing that I got.
Hey, Sensei, pull that down for just a second so they can hear you.
One of the personality type devices that I got really interested in was the Enneagram. And one of the things, there's, for each of the personality types, there's unhealthy versions and healthy versions. And, that obsessed with analyzing my type and how to get my experiences. But one of the things that it said was that at its healthiest, that one of the primary attributes, primary characteristics is love. So I think that maybe we could look at if gratitude is not necessarily wearing the monkey down, but taking the three poisons and we're wearing them out.
Right.
The greed, hate, and illusion are what's getting exhausted. That our practice kind of functions as an antidote or treatment for that. And as the treatment takes hold, things like gratitude become more and more. So I don't think I said anything that you didn't.
No, that's why I didn't reply immediately. It's like, yes, I'm in agreement. We just said it different ways.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Yeah, just bringing this up, it made me remember over the years during Dokusan, this would come up pretty often, especially during a retreat. People would come in and express this sense of deep gratitude. Sometimes they just, express gratitude to me for what I do for Zen, et cetera. And I said, that's nice. It's not exactly appropriate because it's not really totally selfless. It's also selfish. So in one sense, expressing gratitude to each other for what you do for Zen, and I've said this before, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's nice socially. But so I began to think about it, and I would ask them, yes, but can you reflect it back on everything? Can you reflect your gratitude back on everything without discrimination? So maybe you can speak to that.
I think when you say reflecting it back on everything, I think that's part of, to twist that a little bit, change perspective. I think that's one of the things I have such immense gratitude for, is that when I feel, back to that mental model where I'm just, interconnected with everything, I also feel like I am one small little tiny node, one little piece of the universe, and how wonderful that this node I call me gets to be sentient and gets to be aware and gets to appreciate it. And so I am one way that the universe can be aware of itself. And to your point about reflecting it back to everything, that is my gift back to the universe, that I can appreciate it and really see the beauty and be grateful for it, and then express that back, like the eye, providing vision to the body. My little node gets to provide appreciation back to the entire universe, if that makes any sense.
One of the things you said that resonated with me, Kosetsu, was really that practicing is a form of gratitude, and you hit, where I love the way you kind of broke it down, and you were saying how, well, it's working with gratitude in our day-to-day practice. Like, what does that mean? And then you really spoke about the consistency that comes with, that, and consistently, thank you, providing that every single day. It's a gift for self, gift for other, which kind of, since they says, act as a mirror for everything else. So the other thing that you said came up with sesshin, when we have the ability, what John was saying, work with things that come up, and the exhaustion of the monkey going to sleep, John in the corner. That's going to be my visual for the week. But really, that's what we do when we practice and when we're extended periods of time, is we're working with that, and it's that constant in sesshin. For me, it's about day 3, where everything kind of starts to settle in, and you're just kind of like, it's totally, your mind gets exhausted with, it's that curve, right, Sensei? So
Hump day.
I really appreciate the kind of the recognition that gratitude as practice is something that we work with, and it also helps, for me, aspirational, like it's, having the view that it's a part of practice and an aspiration for practice, also the consistency makes it resilient for me. So I appreciate that, the view that the practice is gratitude and vice versa. So thank you for that, Kosetsu. Any other comments in the, take over.
Ideal box. And you mentioned the negative bodhisattva, and that you noticed and you changed your approach. And I'm pretty sure that people, your employees or even the boss you mentioned, I was curious how their reaction was to you. So I think some people will notice, wow, how are you so balanced? How are you so controlled or safe? I was curious how the reaction of your
Right.
reflecting
Right.
gratitude.
So, so I don't know if face the camera or face you.
Yeah.
So, that's an interesting question. So in my career progression, you know, and they call it a progression for a reason. Like you climb the corporate ladder, and I was a director managing an international team, and had a lot of reports and stuff, and life was just no fun. There was a lot going into that. So I took a career break, and I went back into an individual contributor mode. And I was happy in my little corner, you know. But the president of the company came to me and said, you know, you seem to do a good job of coaching. He was very effusive, and I feel like I'm bragging if I say that, but yeah, he said, you know, you are calm, you are coaching and mentoring. Would you please take this team, this department, you know, and work with it? And I did. And my team members have said, you know, that they appreciate my approach. But to the point that Shinjin made about, you know, the personality analyses, there are things that I am not good at, like admin, like, you know, following through on all the little tasks, all things that a manager does need to do. So I am not the perfect manager. I will say that I'm probably, you know, better than average at the things I've been discussing here, and thank you for that. And I'm trying to focus on my strength, and which is actually what I'm trying to do with them is to get them to really, I really feel that so much of traditional management is, okay, let's look at what you did wrong and fix what you did wrong and fix your weaknesses, which kind of, yeah, that's helpful, but that just kind of promotes mediocrity. But the way to get stellar performance is to find out what people are really good at and get them to work on doing what they're really good at. So that's kind of what I've been doing is, yeah, I'm focusing on what I'm really good at. I'm not telling you all the things that I'm not so great at, like, you know, project management and attention to detail and things.
That's where we make a good team.
Yeah, exactly. Did that address your question?
Yeah, I'm good.
Randy, why is daily practice, or why is practicing showing gratitude? I don't understand.
Because how to answer that without quoting half of Yogi, continuous practice? I would the short answer is go back and read that fascicle. That's why the condensed version is the whole point about, you know, the lines about the value of one person's meditation, right, affecting the entire universe, and that everybody's practice affects everyone else, so that your practice is helping everyone else, and their practice is helping you. I mean, there are many paragraphs kind of summarizing that in his seemingly complex yet poetic language. So that's how practice is showing gratitude. I don't know. I don't feel like I did it justice. I hope I kind of summarized it in a way that made some sense. That's your way of giving back.
Thank you for your answer.
That's such a Zen answer.
Yeah, go figure it out for yourself. Through Dogen.
Corolla. Corolla.
Yes. Years ago, Hojo said to me, save yourself, and that's one less pain in the ass the universe has to deal with.
Oh, go ahead.
I've got to write that down. I've forgotten that.
And I think that's quite true. By realizing our own flaws and realizing how we affect the universe, we can maybe do a little less damage than otherwise, than just wandering through as a blind, bumbling, sentient being.
I think that's absolutely correct. I think it was Brad Warner, and maybe he was attributing it to someone else, but said something that just really resonated with me. He said, you can, start your bodhisattva vow with, I vow to save all sentient beings from me. That's the first step, do no harm.
Right. We had a young man here, John Soto. Some of you are here a long time would remember. He worked for the Weather Channel. He was in IT. And he came into Dokusan one day and he said, they gave me this huge promotion. They want me to lead this whole group. And he said, one of the reasons they said is that you work so well with people and you get them to all work with each other. And he said, that's not me. He said, I'm the troublemaker. I come out, cause problems and solve them and so forth. So this change, subtle change that Kosetsu has been talking about is sometimes measurable through these tests over time. Other people often notice it before you do. Like the flower doesn't see its own beauty. Others see the beauty of the flower. So he didn't see it in himself, but his bosses and other people did. And not long thereafter, maybe a year or two, he was recruited by Apple to move to California and take over a large project. So your results may vary.
Is that a disclaimer?
No guarantees.
I've got to just make a statement. I don't know if there's a question in here or not, but I find it very easy to intellectually express gratitude. Look at what I've got. I'm grateful for this. But I find to get it to a deeper level, to a more intuitive level, to use sort of a negative approach, saying, I could have been born in Africa and have nothing, or I could have Hojo's job.
Thank you.
So comparing myself to those who have more suffering, I find very beneficial in expressing my own gratitude.
One of the challenges I have with the word gratitude, but I stuck with it because it is so commonly used in this sense, was gratitude seems to imply a separation, right? I am grateful for something separate from me, or I am grateful to someone else for something they gave to me. It implies a lot of separation. The word that probably makes more sense to me is appreciation, but I didn't feel like it. I felt like gratitude led into the conversation better than appreciation did.
One of our ceremonies, or maybe more than one, it says something about the merit, the merit, the giver and the receiver of the merit. And it basically resolves it by saying the merit, the giver, and the receiver are all immaculate, meaning there's no separation from the beginning. And in that sense, there is no merit transferring from one point to another. I think this is why we do the transfer of merit at the end of the service. We don't want anybody to have the impression that we think we're actually accumulating merit by doing this practice. So we transfer it to somebody else. Well, merit would be similar to gratitude. I wonder if our guest, I'm going to call you out, has anything to say. Yakan. She might need the microphone. It's right there. Oh. Yakan is Vietnamese tradition.
Yes.
You are a nun.
Yes,
were you part of
I'm a nun.
Were you part of Thich Nhat Hanh's group
Yes.
eventually?
No, no,
Okay.
I went to Long Village in Thai,
Oh.
and I read a lot of book of Venerable Thích Nhất Hạnh, and I also follow his teaching and practice when I was young. I very impressed his teaching and the way practice. But thank you for very wonderful your lesson about gratitude. It's in my view, thinking about gratitude. Actually, when I came here, I very gratitude for this center. I have a cup of tea and I have a seat for meditate, and I can listen to the Dharma. I gratitude every sentient being. Before I have a cup of tea, it was somebody they take water, and somebody they plant the tree, and somebody they cook it and serve me. So it's collect many thousand people. I have a delicious cup of tea. Very simple gratitude. Gratitude is I survive and belong to other people. If without them, I cannot exist. That's why how to give back my gratitude to other people. I have to be kindness. I have to be benefit them. I promise I never harm them anyway, even they are my enemy. But the enemy, as you said, the negative bodhisattva, a very great people give us a chance to practice the compassion and practice the patience to them. So that's why any sentient being, any level, support us so much. So this one, how to give back their kindness, even the action is negative, but give me a chance to practice, develop the compassion, develop bodhicitta, and I want to enlightenment to have ability to benefit all sentient being. So I gratitude each moment I'm working, I gratitude in the road somebody make it, and I drinking, I gratitude many people support me. I have drink, I have clothes to wear, I have place for sleeping, I have education from my teacher and from my sponsor, and I gratitude each movement. So that's why very simple. It's connect with me. Without them, I cannot exist. I cannot survive any movement. When we were born, belong to the mother. Without mother, we cannot live only one day. So the very great topic you discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if I can follow on, so Thich Nhat Hanh is a wonderful teacher, and I credit him with teaching me to look deeply into anything. And in terms of practices, you know, to practice gratitude. So that is something I did with my my youngest child. He loved it when we would play a game every night. You know, at bedtime we'd do some reading, and he would pick something in his room, pick a shoe. You know, and say, okay, think about what are the materials in the shoe and where did they come from and who made them and how did it get shipped to you and sold to you and all the relationships that go into it. So I think that is a wonderful way to practice gratitude, just to go through that kind of exercise, so, especially with a child.
Yesterday, he also is, I consider his age in my master. And when I start become a nun when I 17 years old, and I start study Buddha, and I love his writing so much, and I want to meet him in person. But at that time, he in France. So later, when he I visit him on 2018 in Lam village in Thailand. So we read a lot of books, and I also join the course with meditate, how to mindfulness, and then live here and now. So very wonderful. Thank you. Yes.
Reminds me of our meal verse. We reflect on the efforts that brought us this food. Another translation says the 52 efforts that brought us this food. So I don't know what the 52 are, but that's a lot. We have Brendan online, hasn't said anything. And we have Taylor in-house. Taylor is our Ino. He's in charge of the Zendo. He's serving us tea this morning, for which we're grateful, but not overly. So Brendan, you have something? Hand is up, Brendan. Good.
I'm not sure I have a specific question this morning, but I'm grateful for the talk. So thank you very much.
It's good to see your face, Brendan.
Brendan is a neuroscientist now living in Chicago. He did his PhD at Emory.
Oh, wow.
Anything from Suki?
Not at this moment, no. No, this is our topic.
We don't have any more chances for kitchen conversations until next time. So this is your last chance. We have had some great conversations in the kitchen. They've been wonderful.
Adrian?
All right. Yeah. I think it's important to not get too smug in your gratitude and to, oh, I'm so grateful. Yeah. Well, we're apex predators. You know, we're at the top of human existence in one sense. We have food, shelter, clothing, security. Lots of people are not all that grateful because they have very little to be grateful for in terms of just basic survival. And so I think it's very important to not preach at people as to how they should be grateful. I remember reading accounts when I had cancer of people saying, oh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I thought, no, it's not. You know, so I think telling people that they should be grateful or scolding people for not being grateful, recognizing that their suffering is not conducive to gratitude is part of our cultivating compassion. And recognizing that is part of our practice.
We can always depend on you to balance it out, Adrian. Thank you. Closing verse. What time?
Any last comments for you, Kosetsu? Again,
No, I just been absorbing what Adrian said, and that's a perfectly valid point. I just don't have an appropriate response. I don't think it needs a response like a
again, Kosetsu, we have had the benefit, I'm going to steal Hojo's words, of seeing your practice flower this whole month. You know, I have the benefit, Kosetsu is my co-chair for communications. I talk to him very frequently, if not daily, every other day. We see each other weekly, but again, it has been such a benefit for the Sangha here and also online for you to be, your presence to be here in Ango, and we're so very grateful to have you as a part of our practice community. So we look forward to your continued practice on the path in support of whatever that may look like in the future. And we're so grateful to have you in our presence. So continue practicing. We always end our sessions on Thursday with what?
Just keep sitting.
Just keep on sitting. And then with Sensei, Hojo Sensei, just sit still enough, long enough. So thank you so that much. We look forward. All his talks are going to be, except for the one where you went blank.
Well, I'm going to go back and record it. I just haven't had time yet.
So we'll post those on our YouTube and our Facebook. And again, please continue to look out for Kosetsu. And a couple other things before we close. Again, Hojo Sensei is going to he's working on his second book, so look out for that coming out. Is The Razor's Edge, is that correct?
It's at the publisher. It's pretty much finished, other than they're going to publish it sometime latter half of next year.
So keep looking for that. Again, we have extended practice opportunities all week. We have book clubs. We have everyday sits virtually in the Zendo of the morning sit. We have PM sits. We just have extended opportunities for practice, so we appreciate your practice and your presence. And as always, we are in gratitude for people that are continuing to support our organization, because that allows us to have angos, it allows us to support our teachers, and it allows us to keep the Zendo and our space open. So, but if you have not, we ask that you consider, value given, value received. So consider supporting our efforts. And again, as always, we thank you so much, and we'll do our closing verses. We'll let Suki lead us in the bells.
Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it.
So everyone, have a great week. Again, keep practicing, and again, we appreciate your support and your presence. Everyone, have a great week.